So we've just had Nico Luce with us for a weekend of workshops here in Dublin. Namaste, Nico.
Namaste.
And and I thought while we had Nico here, we'd take the opportunity to ask you some questions regarding yoga. So let's just get straight into it. So I thought when we went home after the workshop last night that what would people be interested in asking? And what I was interested in asking first up was, what is yoga to you?
To me, yoga is my life. Not only because I practice and I live off it, but yoga is in my life. It's not something that I do on the mat. It's the quality of being.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quality of anything that I do in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of being present in the present moment and choosing to create the life that I want to live,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to surviving my life, as
Mhm.
opposed to just living my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga gives us an opportunity to co-create, to go with the flow. Things happen to you, things come your way, and yoga is the way you let them in and how you respond.
That's deep. So, what yoga is to you today, has it changed over the course of your practice? Over how many years have you been practicing for?
I've been practicing for about 13 years, and yes, it has changed many times.
Mm-hmm.
Because many of the initial benefits of the practice, what I thought I was practicing for, became secondary.
Mm-hmm.
The great benefits that we get, and they're very valuable to become stronger and more flexible and to gain vitality, they fade in comparison with having peace of mind, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or being at ease with yourself, or becoming more accepting of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and more forgiving
Mm-hmm.
with yourself, and then it ripples into your life,
Mm-hmm.
and then it ripples into the world. But
Mhm.
it is a process of from the surface to the core, and it changes you from inside out.
Mm-hmm. During the workshop weekend, we've had rather quite a few workshops of people coming in, and I would say that your focus on the breath within the first day was more so than other teachers that have came. And my question would be, have you begun to focus more so on the breath recently, or has that always been in your practice?
No, I think it started growing in me, and just this realization, and we were talking about this during the weekend, that for as long as you can breathe, you can practice yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality of the state of being, how am I feeling and how am I doing in the present moment, is always reflected in your breath.
Mm.
Is this ability to let things in,
Mm-hmm.
inhale,
Mm-hmm.
and to let things out,
Yeah.
exhale, and becoming more one with it, and how much more easeful everything becomes
Mm-hmm.
when we are in touch with this very subtle. It's very subtle. There's a reason why we don't practice the breath right away as a beginner, because it's so subtle. At the beginning, we kind of like need to go for the fireworks, and the breath becomes this very subtle and yet so profound,
Mm-hmm.
so profound. But the beginner student won't have the patience yet to get there, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And well, moving on to the next question, as a beginner, I think so many people wonder, there's so many different, when you look at a schedule from a yoga studio, there's so many different names, so many different styles. If I was a beginner and I would ask you, where do I start?
I think that depends on where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
We have beginners that are young athletes, and we have beginners that are the older population. So it really depends on the individual. If I had to recommend someone to start with a practice, I think it starts with the movement.
Mm-hmm.
This practice is, at least in the physical aspect,
Mm-hmm.
it's about
Yeah.
learning how to move, and starting with a practice that that includes the movement. We cannot forget that. Not everybody has the patience yet to sit down in meditation for 10 minutes or 2 hours. So something that allows us to move and yet through a range that is gentle in our bodies, to really start practicing this loving kindness and ahimsa, the non-violence. So if we can give one powerful tool to a student, to beginner student, would be that use the pose to get into your body, use the movement to get into your body, use this moment on the mat to go inside, to let go a little bit of the world, to let go a little bit of how you're supposed to perform, or what you're supposed to be doing, or how you're supposed to look, and just to get on the inside. On the inside, we have a great place to be.
And we're moving from the beginner to people that have been practicing for some time, and I wanted to talk about what you offer in your workshops, because you know, I think myself and everyone included that attended this weekend gone have learned so much. So I'd like to ask you, how would you describe a weekend workshop with yourself? There's a big one.
That's a big question. I really don't know what to expect. I know that I teach the most amazing texts, and I can say that because I didn't write them.
Yes.
I choose to text and themes and philosophies that moved me, and I can only teach from a place that they speak to me. But what happens is a collective work. This is not the work of one person. In the East, they say that the teacher and the student together create the teaching. So what happens in the weekend is really magic.
Yes,
and it will depend on everybody getting together and creating something together. There's a communion and a communication. There's something that happens between all of us that can never be reproduced. And that is the artistry of it.
Yes.
That it happens when we get together. And then we can go home and we practice on our own, but the magic of all of us sharing the space and connecting at that real level is so beautiful. That's what stays with us. That's what moves me to keep doing this work.
Yeah. So Nico, I'd like to talk about the benefits of yoga, and first off we'll talk about, in your personal practice, what do you find the benefits to be?
The benefit is to be able to tap into our true potential. Yoga is about testing boundaries, and is always going to take us to the edge, and not just physically. I think that this practice is meant to reshape the mind, and how often the mind dictates what is possible without really going there. So as we practice, we learn how to challenge beliefs one by one. Every time we practice, we start challenging, and because change is the constant, change is the only permanent thing. Every day is different. The obvious benefits are only temporary, because at some point we're all gonna age and die. So, but what lasts is this capacity to ask ourselves, is that true? Is that true in me today? Or is that was me yesterday? How is it in me today? And that is the question. To me, yoga is a journey of inner inquiry. It's not the answer, it's the question.
So moving on to the last question that I wanted to bring up today, or the last topic of conversation. Yoga seems to be growing so fast. The yoga itself and yoga, the industry, essentially. And I suppose you hear lots of things about different styles and, negativity towards or other things. And I'd like to hear your take on the industry and then yoga and how they meet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the industry and the expansion of yoga is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have much to learn and to perfection on that. But if it wasn't for the fact that the industry saw that they could develop this to a greater extent, people wouldn't have access to it. And to the linear expansion on quantity of yoga being offered, the next step is more the vertical line on the quality of the yoga that we want to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they come together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will keep growing both in quantity and quality, and it's really up to all of us, because we are the industry, so trashing that, it would be trashing ourselves. It comes back to the question, what am I going to do to make it better?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my take on it. I've seen numerous times, and after every class you have someone that came to yoga for the first time, and this person walked to the studio, of course intimidated, because the image that is portrayed out there is such a high standard and such a high image. But then at the end of the class, this person walks away with a smile on the face, feeling better about themselves. And if we can just keep reproducing that, if we can just keep recreating experiences like that, then we're making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think we have to rush to the airport, don't we?
Yeah.
So I think there's so many questions. We could talk forever, Nico. And I have to say personally, I have been totally inspired by your teachings this weekend. And thank you very much. And thank you for this interview. Namaste.
Thank you, brother. Namaste. Thank you.